Imagine one day you see a job on LinkedIn, the title says AI engineer and the salary is quite high, which makes you look it twice. Then a question starts spinning in your head. Do I need to relearn math now? Do I need to read any research paper? Or do I need to do some kind of PhD for this? Well, the straight answer is no. Today, we are going to understand how a normal software engineer, someone who is already written code and deploying apps, can become an AI engineer in 2026 without changing his entire identity. And this is not just about the hype. This is a complete practical roadmap, one step at a time. But first, let us clear up something that actually creates a lot of confusion. That AI engineer and AI researcher are two completely different jobs. A researcher builds new models, trains them, and goes deep into maths and statistics. Whereas an AI engineer job is something else entirely. Like, think of a company whose customer support team handle thousands of messages every day. They want an assistant that can tell order status, process refund, and only pass complicated cases to a human. To build this assistant, the company doesn't need to train a new model. They just need to take an already built model, connect it to their system, and make it reliable. Well, that is what an AI engineering is. Running an existing model safely in production, not building an entirely new brain from scratch. Now that this thing is clear, the first step is checking your foundation. Before you touch any AI tool, see how solid your basics actually are. Can you deploy an API and maintain it? Do you know about Docker? Do you handle errors properly? Can you build systems that don't just crash the moment something goes wrong? These questions matter because AI doesn't fix a weak system, it makes its weakness bigger. When you put a model's unpredictability, its latency, and its cost on top of an already fragile system, everything falls apart very quickly. A lot of people show an amazing feature in demo and then it collapses in production because nobody thought about caching or the model response came in a format nobody expected. So, if you can honestly tell yourself right now that your fundamentals are not strong yet, then pause. Spend a month or two just working on that because that is not wasted time, it's actually an investment. Once your foundation is solid, the real fun part begins. Building a mental model of how these systems behave. This is where a lot of people jump straight into technical papers, and that is actually the wrong approach. You don't need to understand the internal working of a transformer. You just need to understand how a model practically reacts. Here's a simple exercise for that. Pick any provider, whether it's OpenAI, Anthropic, or Gemini, and run the same prompt over and over again. Watch how the answer changes each time. Move the temperature up and down and notice when the model stays predictable and when it becomes completely random. Deliberately fill up the context window until the model fails, so you get a sense of its limit. This small experiment, which you can do just in 3 to 4 hours, will give you an intuition that months of reading never will. And this is exactly the intuition that saves you in production when something behaves strangely and you need to debug it fast. Once that intuition is built, you move on to calling models from your own code. And this is where your software engineering background becomes your biggest advantage. Here's a simple thing to do. Treat the model API exactly like any unreliable third-party service. Think about integrating a payment gateway. You never assume it will always respond instantly. The model behaves the same way. Sometimes it's slow, sometimes it returns a response in a wrong format. Sometimes it fails completely. So add retries with proper backoff, set timeouts, log every input and output so you can debug later. And keep a backup model ready in case the primary one doesn't work. Try one practical project here. Build a simple endpoint that calls the model, validates its output, and never crash no matter how strange the model response is. This small task teaches you production grade thinking. Now, after all this, let's talk about prompting, which may sound simple, but is actually a complete exercise in interface design. Just like you define input, enforce schemas, and handle edge cases when designing an API, you need to do the same with prompts. For structured output, use Pydantic in Python or Zod in TypeScript. So the model always responds in a fixed, predictable format. Not most of the time, but every single time. If the input is uncertain or invalid, define a fallback response in advance. And while doing all this, remember one golden rule. If your prompt breaks the moment the input changes slightly, it's not production ready. Treat prompts like code. Version control them, write test cases for them, so whenever something changes, you know exactly what broke and what worked. And if you have made it this far into the video, imagine a new scenario where a company has tens of thousands of internal documents, policies, manuals, old reports, and everything. They want an assistant that can answer employee questions using these documents. But there's a problem. The model doesn't have all these documents stored inside it. Its memory isn't big enough to fit everything in. This is where RAG comes in, Retrieval Augmented Generation. The idea is very simple. Whenever a question comes in, first find the relevant document, give them to the model as context, and let the model generate an answer based on that context. Even today, most real AI products runs on this exact pattern because every company wants the AI to use their own data, not give generic answer. When you are building RAG, there's 3 things that matters a lot. First is chunking, which means breaking document into small logical pieces. If the chunks are too big, you waste context. If they are too small, you lose meaning. Second is retrieval, where embeddings are used to search by meaning and keyword search is used to find the exact name or ID. And the final and the third step is re-ranking, where among all the results you get, the most relevant ones are pushed to the top so the model gets the best possible context. For this, you don't need a big vector database at the start. First, use simple Python library like NumPy to convert your document into vector and store them into your computer memory and calculate the similarity yourself. This makes the core logic of RAG completely clear. There also a newer trending approach called vectorless RAG, where no embedding or database are used at all. Documents are organized into tree-like structure and the model uses its own reasoning to find the right section. Vector databases like Pinecone or Quadrant become useful only when your data scales to millions of records or you need a real-time update. And always keep an eye on latency because retrieval time and generation time adds up. If together they takes up 5 seconds, the user isn't going to wait. Now let's take another scenario, a bit different this time. Imagine you have built an assistant for a delivery app. The user asks where the order is and the assistant doesn't just answer, it actually calls the order tracking system, pulls the live status. This is called tool calling, when the model doesn't just generate text but actually take real action, like calling an API or querying a database. And this is often where things break. Because getting a tool call to work once in a demo is easy, but running it reliably thousands of times is very hard. To build a good agent, practice using at least 2 tools. Validate the argument before taking any action, and if something goes wrong, make sure the system fails gracefully instead of silently doing the wrong side. Inside an agent, there are few building blocks: a planner that decides what to do, an executor that carries out the action, and a memory that holds on to past context, and the reflection that improves the output over time. The biggest warning here is that agent fails silently, meaning they do the wrong thing but look completely confident while doing it. That's why observability, tracking what's happening inside the system, needs to be set up from day one. After this comes a part only a few people take seriously, but it actually what defines your career: evaluation and cost control. Once you have built a system, the most important question becomes, how do you know if it's actually working well? For this, golden test sets are created, a fixed set of question and answer pair you can use to check your system again and again. Metrics like RAGAs are used to see whether the model's answer actually match the retrieved context. Track latency, error rate, and cost every day. Cache aggressively so the same question doesn't hit the model repeatedly. And use smaller, cheaper model wherever possible. If you can cut a company's inference cost by even 30% without hurting quality, you instantly become valuable. Keep fine-tuning as the very last step, and only when there's a clear reason for it. Now let's talk about tool. But instead of just listing names, let's understand why each category actually matters. Orchestration tools like LangChain and LangGraph help connect different steps, retrieve model calls, tool use all together. So you don't have to write the plumbing from scratch every time. Vector databases come into play when you need to store and search your data efficiently, like we saw in the document example. Observability tools like LangFuse and LangSmith show you what's happening inside the system, which step is slow, where the error is coming from, exactly like monitoring in normal software. And there's a new protocol standards emerging called MCP and A2A, which give different AI tools a common way to talk to each other. This area is still something very few people understand well. So if you invest here, you stand out from the crowd immediately. When it comes to timeline, if you are already comfortable with Python and software engineering, this transition can happen roughly in 8 to 12 months with focused effort. As for salary, according to 2026 data, the median salary for AI engineer in US is roughly between 120k and 150k. So if we had to pick one number, around 140k is a fair estimate. Entry-level roles typically start between 90k and 130k depending on location and company. And in major tech hub, offers often cluster around 100k to 120k. Mid-level, meaning engineers with 3 to 5 years of experience, commonly earn between 140k and 200k, and the top market offers go even higher than that. For senior roles, base salary often start around 180k and mostly sit in low to mid 200k range. While at very senior level, base pay can approach or exceed 280k and total compensation with equity or bonus can be slightly higher. And now one last thing that makes the biggest difference in interview, that completing 10 tutorials is worth far less than building 2 to 3 production grade projects. Ones where you can showcase architecture diagram, explain trade-off, and openly talk about what broke and how you fix it. This is what shows you are not just a follower, you are an actual builder. So remember, this isn't an overnight transition. It's a systematic journey starting from your fundamentals, building intuition about these models, creating real small projects, and gradually establishing yourself in this new field. Follow the roadmap, and by the time 2026 ends, you could be among the top people who have become expert in most in-demand skill of this new era. Now, if you like the roadmap, please hit the like button, and if you have any doubts, comment the same, and I will see you in the next video. And don't forget to subscribe because I keep on pushing these videos every week so that you stay updated in the world of AI.